Hello, good afternoon. I'm Tom Butcher of the Zero Project, and I'm here this afternoon with Rastgo HAMASAEED of HDO in Iraq. We're going to discuss inclusive education challenges in the Kurdistan region of Iraq and steps forward. Great to see you, Rastgo. I'm going to step in with some questions for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
A baptism of fire. So, Rastgo, what do you see really as the, say, three specific challenges faced by students, particularly concerning access, resources, and societal perceptions?
Okay, thank you very much, Thomas, and thanks for this opportunity to be here, and super excited to be part of this conference. And I would like to say that we are the only one in Iraq, despite having like more than 17% of people with disability in the country, and there's we can say there's no NGOs to represent here and to tell the international community the challenge that we face and the students face in the Iraq, and specifically in the field of education. You know that Iraq was the center of the war since the last 3 or 2 decades, and this how impacted, or this how affected the education system in Iraq, specifically after 2015, after the ISIS camps, and how the infrastructure was how collapsed. We can say that students with disabilities in Iraq face challenges in the field of infrastructure, the accessibility, the resources, limited resources, the knowledge of the teachers, and the lack of the trained teachers, experts in the field of education. For example, there is a strategy among the Kurdistan regional government until 2013. So this strategy consists of the somehow building capacity of teachers. If you go a look at the strategy, you cannot find any topics related to the inclusive education. There is no topics that they're going to train the students, train the teachers on the inclusive education. So this is one of the challenges that there's limited resources, limited capacity among the local authorities, the teachers concerning the inclusive education. I would like to say another challenge, which is about the awareness of the families. They don't see education as a priority for their children to be access to education or this kind of stuff. So this is somehow impacted the enrollment. Let's somehow give an example. In Halabja, where we basically work, we have designed like 5 years program there. We yearly somehow collect the data about the students with disabilities in the city. So the data that are registered in the schools is 524 students. But when we go to the Directorate of Labor and Social Affairs and to see the number of children that we have for those with students with disability, for the children with disabilities are more than 1,000. So we can say half of the children have the access to education, and this is somehow another challenge related to the parents. They feel ashamed to send their children to the schools. So this is another challenge related to the families. Also, the limited resources, as I previously somehow talked about it, when the government, when there is a war, when there is an economic crisis, where there is somehow conflict between the parties, the most of the budget will be allocated to the wars.
Yes.
So there is no specific budget in Iraq for inclusive education. As far as we advocated for this, there is no, because actually there is some kind of conflict between the two governments. So this affects also the education system.
Right.
So also in terms of the civil society organizations and advocacy initiatives, we can say there is not actual strong organization that are committed to promote the rights of people with disabilities in Iraq. This affects also the advocacy initiatives. This somehow affected the process of how the rights are respected, the situation of the students in the schools. So the whole process is deep, and this somehow affects all the process of the community and the inclusion of people with disabilities. Also, the number of dropout rates somehow, it's very somehow, unfortunately to say, that affects all the community. We cannot see where the students are graduated from the university. So if you look at the number of graduates from the students with disability are less than 10%. So this is the actual challenge, that the situation of inclusive education in Iraq.
Right. And when I want to go back to one thing where we use the word students. What ages are we talking about? Are we talking about right the way through from primary, secondary, and tertiary education?
So basically, when I talk about the students, I refer to the age from 6 to the age of 12 from the primary,
Right.
and also from the 12 to the 18s from the high level, and then
Yes.
the university level until 22. So this is the age when we discuss the topics.
Right. And you were saying that the dropout rate is really fairly high. So is there a larger proportion of smaller children who are with disabilities who are educated, then the next level up, even fewer, and then tertiary education, practically no one at all?
Even we don't have accurate data about the percentage and the number of illiterate students
Right.
or peoples with disabilities, but according to the data that we have at Halabja Disabled Organization,
Yeah.
we have more than 4,000 peoples with disabilities registered.
Yeah.
Out of this 4,000 peoples, we can say 70% are illiterate and they cannot read and write. So this is the actual data that we have. It's accurate, and
Yeah.
we can focus on it for the development of projects.
Right. So that's the kind of base data.
Yeah, this is one of the cities in Iraq,
Yeah.
in Halabja. We basically work there and we collect the data. So this is the challenge have created this kind of illiteracy and this kind
Yeah.
of knowledge and how they can continue studying, and the dropout rates are increased always. And we see in it day by day how the students get dropped out due to the reasons of bullying, this kind of stuff also.
Yes. Wonderful. Oh, it's not wonderful at all. It's really, I mean,
No, it's strange.
thank you for your answers. So let's move on, and I'm going to put two kind of different subjects together, which is the role of duty bearers, and then also like you to talk about some of the initiatives and contributions from civil society and really kind of donor organizations. So let's talk about duty bearers first, and the crucial role that educational institutions and policy makers have in both addressing and mitigating challenges.
Actually, in terms of the laws, in terms of the articles and the policies in Iraq and Kurdistan region, we have good articles, we have good policies, we have good laws that they protect the rights and the peoples and the students. Everything is good in terms of the articles and in terms of the books. But when we came to the reality, it's vice versa. We can see that the rights are violated, the rights are so on as we discussed it. But when we talk about the duty barriers, especially the local authorities from the Ministry of Education, Labor and Social Affairs and Health, their main responsibility is to provide support for the students and to somehow increase the resources for the special education, or we can say inclusive education, and somehow give extra support for the families, rehabilitation centers. Even now in Halabja, we don't have any kind of rehabilitation centers to rehabilitate authentic students, or this kind of, we can say ADHD students to be rehabilitated, then to go back to the school.
Right.
So this is their priorities actually, to provide these resources, as well as for the civil society organization or for the international community. We would like to say that there's a huge gap in this process, and there is much more efforts need to be pushed to the local authorities to take actions, actually to benefit from the experiences, to benefit from the knowledge in terms of inclusive education. There is much more support needed by the local authorities as well. So it's not only about, we can say, the resources, maybe the knowledge. I also fill some gaps by the ministries that we have. So this is also an issue that we ask the international community, the ones who have the powers, they can change and affect the local authorities. Also, in terms of the local authorities concerning the second part of your question,
the initiatives,
the initiatives, there are many NGOs who work in the field of inclusive education, and they have shown good practices and good projects, but you know that their capacity is somehow limited. They cannot do everything. But according to what we have seen and what we are doing now, we have designed it like a 5 years program supported by Ministry of FIDA International, Ministry of somehow Foreign Affairs of Finland. Through these projects, we work in the field of building capacity of teachers, supervisors, social workers, families, and students with disabilities through many initiatives. Hopefully, we can say for this year in 2023 and 2024, we have targeted and we have reached to increase capacity of more than 100 teachers, specifically in the field of inclusive education, not other topics on the method of teachings and this kind of methods, but specifically in inclusive education and best practices. We have somehow trained many teachers, and we have seen the impact. Also, in terms of advocacy, we have designed projects where the young peoples with disabilities are the one who advocate for their rights with their families. So this is also a good practice, but also there is a need from the civil societies to be developed to work in the development projects. You know that Iraq is after post-war, they can say years, and we need extra support from the international community to support our initiatives. And because you are the grassroots, we know the problems, and we know the ways that we can solve the challenge faced by the students with disabilities.
Great. That's really interesting. And there's one aspect you mentioned, the Finnish government who are helping out. The donors who you do have who are involved, are they countries or organizations that have been involved in Kurdistan for a long time, or are they people who are coming into the field new, and this is something that these are new programs that they haven't done before?
We can say both. There are some projects directly led by the experts from Kurdistan region and from the cities where they implement projects where somehow have a good response from the community, because they are the people from the community. They understand the issues, and the peoples interact with them. The response is very positive. Also, we have also the peoples from the experts from the Finland, so where they train the staffs, the teachers, the community, and they support us to do the work. So it's indirect support.
Great. Thank you so much. We've got 3 minutes left. And at the end of my talks and my discussions with my kind guests who are happy to appear or maybe not happy to appear, I always say, what one or two things would you like listeners, viewers, everybody here to take away from our discussion?
The first one is support students with disabilities in Iraq, because they need to see the international events, conferences. They need to be here to see the initiatives by the we can say the NGOs or the foundations here, and get experience from these events and go back to the country implemented. This is the second one. The second one is I ask you to support Iraq to develop its inclusive education policies. It is teachers building capacity of its teachers, and this is something I can say very important at this level, because we need to increase the awareness, because there is limited knowledge among the local authorities on inclusive education, and request to support Iraq in this process. Thank you very much.
Rastgo, thank you very much indeed. I really appreciate your coming here. It's a long way, and whatever we can do, whatever everybody else here can help you with, that's why we're here. And I hope we see you at many conferences again. But thank you very much. And thank you, viewers, for joining us this afternoon for our virtual Fireside chat. There we go.
Thank you so much, Thomas.
Great stuff.
It was very good to be with you. Thank you.
And you got everything in.
Yeah, we covered the time.
You really did. I mean, it was super concentrated.